Hello, you guys. It is the first day of August. Leo, stand up. Yeah. I'm not a Leo girl. Anyways, so this is our end of the month vlog where I read books all throughout the month with a theme. Never know what the theme is until I figure it out, but we do have a theme. So I am a literary fiction girl. I got my degree in English. I love literary fiction. I read literary fiction all of the time, but the past few years, I've been really focused on romance. I read thrillers, and so I've kind of fallen off in the literary fiction world. Like, a new literary fiction comes out, and I pick it up, but I never read it. So I decided I am going to go back into my internet intellectual bag. I want to be an internet intellectual. I want to read the books that the internet intellectuals are reading. I want to be a part of the discussion. I want to be a part of the noise. I want to read the books that the internet intellectuals are reading. And so I decided to pick up what I believe to be 4 of the most popular literary fiction books that have come out, because I need to catch up. I need to catch up on what the girls have read, because I'm out of the loop now. I am out of the loop now, and I used to be so in the loop. I used to know what all the literary fiction books were, but since I've left college, I just haven't been up on what's in the know. So in this book, we're going to catch up on some literary fiction, and I'm going to be a smart girly again. So the first book we are going to, well, I don't know about the first book we're going to read, but we are going to read Pachinko. I am so, is that how you pronounce this? Oh God. I am so behind. This book is already a movie. This book is already a movie. I mean, a TV show. Like, that's how far behind I am. But I have to read this book. Like, the fact that I haven't read this book just shows you I'm a poser. Everyone who I am in community with has read this book. Like, in real life, like, they've read this book and I haven't. And I haven't. When I go to the bookstore and I tell the girls at the bookstore I haven't read this, they look at me like I am dumb. I'm just like, I know. But I have it. Look, I own it. None of these books I had to go find. I own all of them. Like, I have to read it. I have to read it. So this is a book that we're going to be reading in this video. The next one, another thing already being turned into like a theatrical production, Luster. I have not read Luster. This is really showing I'm fake, because I'm a black girl and I have not read Luster. I am going to read Luster in this video. I'm excited to read Luster in this video. I have to read Luster. Not only do I have to, I didn't even own Luster, you guys. A couple months ago, I had to go pick up Luster. Like, I had to go buy it. That's how far behind I am. I got to get back in my bag. My Dark Vanessa. My Dark Vanessa. I haven't read it. I have not read My Dark Vanessa. And the thing is, I know this is a book I feel like I know I'm gonna love. Oh my, I haven't read My Dark Vanessa. We're reading it in this video. And lastly, Sorrow and Bliss. Sorrow and Bliss has been so popular. It has been in so many people's book lists. Like, Sorrow and Bliss has just been that girl, I feel like, around town, and I haven't read Sorrow and Bliss. So I feel like I put together a good list of literary fiction books that most people have read on the internet who call themselves a literary fiction girl. feel like I put together a good stack of books that I feel like everyone who likes literary fiction probably should have read. So that's what this vlog is about, me getting back into my literary fiction bag. Anyways, what are we going to start with? We're going to start with My Dark Vanessa. That's the first book we're going to read. I want to just get into it. This is the book. The most intimidating book is this one. Look how long this is. Most intimidating. I'm going to have to sit with this for a while, so we're not going to get into this. Maybe we'll do this like in the middle. You know, when the month is getting long, I'll probably pick this up. But we're going to start with My Dark Vanessa because I want to start with a bang. This is a 5-star prediction. So I'm going to get into it, okay? Peace. I am so enthralled. I haven't even really been able to think about like what my rating would be at this point. Like, I've just been reading it, and boy does this book give me thoughts. So first, let me begin by telling you what this book is about. We start this book with this girl named Vanessa who is in her 20s, and she is on the phone with a professor that she once had sexual relationships with, and she is talking to him about a case in which he is being accused of sexual misconduct and grooming by a girl who was once his student. But this girl, Vanessa, is still in contact with this professor, and she does not believe this professor has done anything wrong because she has had a relationship with the professor and she thinks that he is perfectly fine. Then the book jumps back to how their relationship started. If you read the author's note, the author's notes talks about this connection to Lolita, how this is, even though it's not, it's like it has some Lolita-ness to it, which Lolita is a classic novel. Read it anyways if you want to. But yeah, so that's basically what is going on. We are now where I am at. We are finding out how this girl got into this relationship with this professor. And so I am here. You want to know what I want to point out about this book? If you took the literary fiction stamp off of this book and you put the romance stamp on this book would fly off the shelves. This would be a romance book that a lot of people in this day and age would read. If you, instead of making her 15, just made her 18 and kept the professor the exact same age, this would be a romance book that people would read. And what does that say? Because this book is literary fiction and we are expected to see the way the professor is grooming Vanessa and the way this professor is predatory, it's easy to catch the signs. It's easy to catch the signs how this is toxic, how this is nasty, and how this is gross. But if you just put romance and stamped it on the front of this, and then put your little cartoon cover on the front of this, and then made the girl 18, people would read this book and they would love it. They would see no problem with it. And what does that say? What that says is the romance novels that we get, especially the age different, the power dynamic romance novels that we get, are kind of disgusting. They're kind of disgusting. And that's something I've been trying to say a lot of times, that a lot of these romance novels that are being catered to kids sometimes, like being catered to teens sometimes, 100% delve into this world of consent that isn't given, delve into this world of grooming, like things that are predatory, all types of things like that. And that's what, as I'm reading this, I have been noticing. It's so easy in the context of this book to see all the ways in which the teacher is disgusting. Like, he's disgusting. The type of things that he says to her, this type of things he says to her that only a child would be thrilled by. He knows exactly what tools to use to get this girl to like him. But it's interesting that in a romance novel, those things would be overlooked. Those things would actually be seen as cute. Those things would actually be seen as adorable. For some reason in romance, a lot of the audience loves this idea of this guy just wanting to take care of this little girl. Go, just take care of me. I'm so helpless. I'm so lonely. I'm so this. And this grown man, he just wants to engulf me and he just wants to... It's still predatory. What's the difference between an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old? Not much. Not much. Are those 3 years really the thing that does it for you, that makes you believe like, okay, this is okay? That's all I want to say. It just really has me thinking, especially because I'm trying to come together and like bring in all my thoughts I feel about current adult romance that I don't like, because I'm kind of in my anti-adult romance phase. Like, stay with me. But it's really hitting the nail on the head when it comes to that. Anyways, I'm going to continue to read, and I'll come back if I have more thoughts, because I think I am. I think before I finish, I'm going to have more thoughts, because we really haven't even gotten into the story. Like, I'm literally on page 66. We haven't even gotten into the story. Anyways, I'm going to continue reading, and I will see you guys in the next update. Hello, you guys. I'm back for another Dear My Dark Vanessa update. This book is bringing out so many messy emotions in me, like emotions that I shouldn't have because they're not warranted and they're problematic, and emotions that like are warranted, like I feel for Vanessa, and then emotions about like the world we live in today and how this book is so timely. So let's start with the problematic emotions. Vanessa gets on my nerves. Vanessa gets on my nerves. Like, she is not a good person, but the thing is, it's a problematic opinion because she's acting like this because she's 15 years old. She's 15 years old and she is being sexually assaulted by a grown man, and she doesn't even have the tools to realize that is fully what's happening to her. So she is acting like any 15-year-old would act, but the way she talks to the teacher, her old friend, what she says to her mother, like she thinks she's better than everyone else, and I'm just sitting here like, girl, number one, you got groomed, and then secondly, like, you're being sexually assaulted. It's like, you're in the bad place. You're in the bad place. You're living in hell. You're living in hell, and you're over here acting like everybody else is down bad, but you're down the worst. But the thing is, that is not her fault. That is not her fault. It is not her fault that this stuff is happening to her. It's not her fault that she's turning into a mean person. That is just what happens when you are being preyed on. When you are being preyed on, when you are the victim of what she is a victim of. Another opinion that I have been having is, this is so timely because so many girlies these days, and I call them girlies because they're usually girlies, they are like teens, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and they are dating grown men. I'm talking about men who are like 40 plus. And they get online and they just tell you how great this is, how great this is. I have so much power. I have so much control, just like Vanessa is saying. Vanessa feels like she is getting one up on society. She's getting one up on society. She has hoodwinked the game. Like, all these little girls, they're over here dealing with little girl problems, and I'm over here with a grown man. He has a job. He has a home. I've won. You girls are just jealous of me. So many girls think that today. Like, they believe they with their 50-year-old man and they 19 and the rest of us are just jealous and da-da-da-da-da. But it's like, this book shows you that, like, you're not winning. You're not winning. Because there is no prize at the end of that. Because what Vanessa is learning, and I'm sure is going to eventually learn, is that she's disposable. She's disposable. And also there's an expiration date on this liberation. What's freedom if it can be snatched away from you, right? Like, the minute you're no longer young and hip, it gets snatched away from you. And we're learning that from the 2017 timeline, because this is told in dual timelines. In the 2017 timeline, she's 30 years old and she's clinging on so badly to youth. Clinging on so badly to youth because that's the last time she felt good about herself. Another thought that this has had, you hear so many women say that when I turned 30, it was the best years of my life. Like, I didn't become happy until I hit 30, 40, 50. But yet, the thing that even those women who say that still cling to this idea of trying to let you know that 30 is young, 40 is young, 50 is young. And it's just like, what is that duality here? This idea that you always have to be seen as young. Like, why does it hurt you so if no one considers that age that you are young? Like, what is this obsession with youth? And does that obsession with youth just come from the fact that men are obsessed with you? That even though you at 40 years old are living a 10 times better life than you at 20, why do you so badly want to be in that number of the 20-year-olds? It's 100% because of how men view desirability and how they view youth. If 30, 40, 50-year-old women were seen as attractive as younger girls, that there would be no want to be in the same number as 20 years old, because 20-year-olds, because people already say as you get older, life gets better. Like, the girls are always saying that at 20, I didn't know nothing, at this, but there's still this idea of clinging to that. We have Vanessa. Vanessa is 30 years old and she is no longer in the situation where she is being sexually assaulted because she's 30 years old. But she still is, she's clinging so badly to this 15-year-old girl she once was, even though this 15-year-old girl was down bad and she know it. Why is that? What is this thing in society that makes us constantly cling to youth? And is it not just us also being a victim of the same thing that Vanessa is a victim of? This idea that when you are a girl and you are young, that is when you are at your most valuable. And Vanessa feels like because she is young, because she is bringing this grown man to his knees, just like the girlies on the internet try to say, because they are bringing these grown men to their knees, like they have this power. And it's like, he just like little girls. He just like little girls. Like, it's not a you thing. He has an issue thing. He likes little girls. He likes little girls because that's just him. Because that is simply him. But this book has just, like, so many thoughts have just been in my head as I am reading this book about the plot, what's going on in the plot. We're still following Vanessa being sexually assaulted. Another thing that is so timely, and outside I say people don't talk about, is Vanessa is audibly disgusted when she is with this man and they engage in any sexual activity. She is disgusted by this man. So that duality there, this two sides of the coin there, this idea like, oh my gosh, this man he's liberating me. I'm free. And she's absolutely disgusted by this man. Is that not what the same girlies say? They be with these ugly, decrepit, nasty old men, but they're like, I'm free. You're disgusted by this man, but you're also liberated by them. It's like, it's this thin line between exploitation and freedom, right? We know she's 15 years old, so it's all exploitation. It's all exploitation, but she feels free. And so, but with the girlies who are of age, it's this thin line between exploitation and free. I look a mess, but like, follow me. So I finished My Dark Vanessa, and I have thoughts. So I'm going to go into spoiler thoughts because I feel like that's the only way to really do my thoughts justice if I spoil some stuff. So I am going to give this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. To me, the second half of this book is just not all that great, not as good as the first half, and I believe the book is entirely too long. Therefore, the effect that this book wants to have, I think, loses it for people who are already like woke, people who already sympathize with abuse victims, people who already know the things that abuse victims go through after the fact and during the fact. It kind of loses that effect if you already, the purpose of this novel, you already believe. Like, you don't need to be convinced of anything. You already are on the side of women and on the side of people who say they are abused. It kind of loses that effect on me because I already sympathized with Vanessa. I already knew exactly what this book was trying to do. At some point, I always come on here looking like a wet dog because at some point I am going to wash my hair and come back. I have to dry my hair, but I want to give you guys an update on Luster. This is a very short book, therefore I was going to finish it before I was going to be able to talk to you guys about Luster. So Luster is one of your millennial woman fumbling through life, depressed and sad, and using sex to cure her depression, or so she thinks. She's not fully aware that she's depressed, or she won't admit that she's depressed, even though everyone knows she's depressed. She's just fumbling through life, fucking up. She cares about nothing. She doesn't know why she doesn't care about anything. She doesn't know why she lets men treat her like shit. She doesn't know why she's just having sex with random men. She doesn't know. She's just fumbling through life. She's just a millennial woman trying her best, so she believes, and she just doesn't get it. She doesn't have the answers to life. She was promised a life that she is not getting. It's one of those books. It is one of those books. So this book follows a girl. She lives in New York City, and basically she has started a relationship with a married older white man. This married older white man, he has an open marriage, and he decides that he is going to have a relationship with this black girl who lives in New York City. This girl is poor. Both of her parents are dead. And she's just fumbling through life, just having sex with who she can have sex with. She is an artist. She works at this like publishing house type place. And yeah, she's just in this relationship with this guy, and his wife knows about the relationship, and they're in an open marriage, and she is having sex with this older white man, and she is learning things about herself, also learning nothing about herself, and she is depressed and she is sad. It's one of those, like, I just don't know what to tell you. You are just following this downtrodden woman as she is having this relationship with this man who is married, this toxic relationship with this man who is married, and her living in New York City and dealing with all the things going on in her life. I'm not loving it. I'm not loving it, and there's for many reasons. One, I can see why if you are a black woman, you would like this book. I know a lot of people like to say that there's not a lot of like good for you, good for her black girl books, or like black girls don't get like My Year of Rest and Relaxation books, which I think is like not true. I think you don't read enough literary fiction if you don't believe there's books about like young black women trying to make it in like contemporary society. There's a lot of people have been writing literary fiction about that since forever. So like I don't think that's necessarily true, but like here you go. If you want a mainstream book, I believe this is getting made into an HBO show. So like this, here you go. This is that for you. So I can 100% appreciate what this book can stand for, and I understand why people can like this book. But for me in my home, I just don't like this genre of book. I didn't like My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I'm worried about Sorrow and Bliss, which we're going to read later on in the video. Like, I just don't know if the fumbling millennial woman who just has a lot of problems, she's depressed, she's lonely, she uses sex to cope with those things, I don't know if it works for me, and I don't know why it doesn't work for me. This is more compelling to me than My Year of Rest and Relaxation, but that's simply just because she's black. But I don't feel anything. Because when I'm reading these books, I kind of feel like it's theatrical. I feel like I'm watching a stage play, a Tyler Perry production. Like, it's just over dramatized. It's just over the top. And so any feeling I have, like this is a real person doing this, like in this book, when she is talking about all the men she has slept with in her office, I'm just like, that's supposed to be there for like shock value, like this woman is running through everybody in her office, but to me it just seems unimaginable. Like I'm sure someone is doing it, but like to me it just comes off a bit unimaginable, a bit fantastical. That's what these books are, like just a bit fantastical, with the roaches in her apartment, the mice in her apartment, and the knives in her shower, and the like, it just over the top, like the worst things imaginable can happen to her. Then when it comes to the relationship she is having with this married man, that seems over the top. That's why when this becomes a TV show, I'ma be there, because it seems theatrical. It seems like TV showish. Like that's what it seems. But reading it, I'm just like, sure you want the man that you're having this relationship with to punch you in the face. Like, yes, sure, we're driving in the car and all of a sudden he says he wants to hit you and you let him. Like, sure, all of a sudden you're delivering food for Uber Eats and all of a sudden you deliver food to the wife. Sure, you show up to the house and it's a house party and the wife tell you to put on some clothes and stay. Like, sure, when you put your carrot cake on the counter, all of a sudden the mice start eating it before you do. Sure. Like, sure, you had an abortion at 16. Sure, like, it just, in these books, it's just like, sure, the worst fucking thing imaginable happens to these women. But the thing is, it's the worst things imaginable within reason, you know? Like, it's never gonna be like the most, like, people have rougher lives. It's people who have moderately rough lives. I think her life is pretty rough. But people who have rough lives and they're just like, taking the piss out of them, like it's just like over the top rough, and it's just like, I never know how I'm supposed to feel. I'm just not as compelled. I literally saw a review for this book this morning from someone on Instagram and they loved it. And I'm sitting here like, this is just not my genre. This is just not, and it sucks because I'm looking at the books that I purchased, the book that's on my bookshelf, like Night Bitch, Post Traumatic, like all types of books that I own, and a lot of them are also still about this. So it's just like, I'm gonna have to continue to read books like this. I thought Luster would be the one that really, really works for me, but like, I don't care. I have nothing wrong with the prose, nothing wrong with the message, nothing wrong with the story. It's just not for me. Anyways though, I am gonna finish it. I'm on page 137. I am gonna finish it, but so far, not so good. I am sure y'all want me to have something positive to say about Luster by Raven Leilani, her debut novel, and I have nothing positive to say. I'm giving this book a 2 out of 5 stars, and I'm 100% giving it to another star than the one I want to give it because a black person wrote the book. Because if a white person wrote the book, I'd be annihilating this book. I hated everything about it. I hated everything about this book. Like, I have nothing positive to say. This book likes to use a bunch of adjectives to describe everything. And like, for some people, they fall for that okie doke. They fall for that okie doke. But I honestly feel like when authors do that, they're doing that to get out of writing the story. They're using that to get out of writing a plot, a compelling story, having compelling characters. So they describe everything with immense detail in order for you to be like, wow, that's so clever. Like, whoa, you described that perfectly. But like, describe the rest of the book. Can you describe the plot? Can you describe the story? I found the sentences in this book, I don't know, like to be like they're run-on sentences to the point where it's hard to read. You have to constantly reread parts of the book because you can't, like, the run-on sentences are really, really bad. And so it's just like, I don't even know what this is trying to say. And this book does the like Catcher in the Rye effect, because I think the Catcher in the Rye is the like book that like popularized this and made this a thing where like you have a stream of consciousness character and they have all these terrible things that have happened to them. And so instead of, when they're telling you the story, telling you about the terrible things that happen to them because those are the most compelling things in their life, they like tell you something bad happened to them, and then they focus on like something else that's so minute. So like, oh, my brother died, but also, hey, I'm eating a hot dog today, and they go describe the hot dog in detail, but you as the reader are supposed to be like, but what about your brother dying? And the thing is, The Catcher in the Rye is one of my favorite classic novels. So like, it's not that I can't appreciate that type of story, but like there's finesse that goes into that. There's this idea that the character doesn't go in detail about the terrible things that happen to them because they're dealing with depression. There's something real about that. There's something real about you like glossing over the horrible things that like shape you and paying attention to the small things, because like if you really went into the details of your life, you wouldn't be able to like cope with it. There's finesse, there's storytelling in that, but this book is not doing that. It just, to me, doesn't have, like, there's no dimension to it. There's no dimension to the characters. There's no dimension to the plot. So instead of it being like, oh my gosh, this character has so many layers that like you don't want to get into because the character is just so depressed, it just seems like the character is nothingness. Like, am I describing that right? Instead, the character is just coming across as like nothing. Like, there's just no depth. Like, you need the details. Like, this book needs the details in order for me to feel like this character is a real character, and we're just simply not getting it. That's another thing that bothers me about this book. This just doesn't feel real. This feels like fan fiction. This feels nonsensical. This just doesn't feel real. Like, these are real people. And it's not like I necessarily need real characters, because if characters were so real and so raw, it'd be boring, right? Because real people are kind of boring. But like, it just seems like none of this just seems plausible. Her moving in with the people, like, it just all seems like just like you're trying to write the most absurd story possible so people can read and be like, oh my gosh, and I'm not falling for it. Like this, like none of it just rings true. I just did not have a good time. And then this book did the thing that I always talk about in every single Black novel that I read. I want Black authors to come up with every single traumatic thing that can happen to a Black person and write it on a piece of paper. Like, things that only happen to Black people that are traumatic and terrible, that happen to them because they are Black. Write them all down. Write them all down. Write police brutality, your neighbors being racist, racial profiling, terrible boss. I want you to write them all down on a piece of paper. All down. Hair issue. Like, write them all down. And pick 3. And when you are writing your novel, I want you to pick 3. I am giving you 3. I really think you should pick 1, but pick 3 and then write your book. Because there is no freaking reason that this book only takes place over a certain period. Like, this is not a book that takes place over a long period of time. And every terrible thing that can happen to a Black person has happened to this woman. Like, that's why I say it's nonsensical. But that's what I have. I have that problem with Ace of Spades, which I hated. What's some other books that I freaking hated? All Her Little Secrets did the same thing. Like, I could just go through all. This part of my shelf is like my black section. I can go through so many books, most of them are The Other Black Girl, where it's just like, we gotta pick a couple traumas. We have to pick a couple traumas, because like, I am so sorry, as a black person, every single trauma does not happen to me. Like, something, like, it just doesn't, just because, like, you know, we all live different lives. Like, we're able to relate to every trauma because we know that those things are possible. Every single thing don't happen to us. You know, it don't happen to every single trauma don't happen to everybody. But in these books with black people, you gotta throw every single trauma at you. And then we also have the let me explain blackness instead of things just being black. I am gonna say, in another world, the good book is actually being told from everyone's perspective. I would love a book about how, like, she goes to move in with, like, the white man she's having an affair with, and like, she's helping the daughter. There's a good book somewhere in here. Somewhere in here is a good book, but this book is just a 20-something-year-old in vibes. And like, that's really big in literary fiction now. Those are the literary fiction books that are getting a lot of love. I don't know why. I just think there's so many more interesting stories to tell about 20-somethings, and these are the ones that's becoming popular. And I'm just like, this is not for me. I should have DNF'd this book. If it wasn't for this video, I would have DNF'd it. I have nothing positive to say. The writing's not good. The plot is not good. The story is not good. The way in which the story is like being told is not good. It's not believable. It's not realistic. It's just no. 2 out of 5 stars. 2 out of 5 stars. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't hate it as much as it's coming across that I hate it, because it's actually really short. Like, that's the thing. At least in your suckiness, be brief. And that's what this book has been able to do. But I see exactly why it's sitting at a 3.5. I wanted to be nasty and say everyone's racist. That's why it's sitting at a low Goodreads rating. No, they're right. They're right. It's not good. It's not good. And you can say, and if you like this book, I will be okay with saying I just don't get it. There are books. I just said I like The Catcher in the Rye. People hate The Catcher in the Rye, and I think they don't get it. They don't get what that book is trying to do. So you know what? I just don't get it. That's fine. That's fine. Anyway, we are going to move on to Pachinko. Am I pronouncing that right? I hope so. That's what we're going to move on to, because I think I need some good food, and I feel like that's going to be some good food. So we're moving on. We're moving on. Yeah, I could have skipped this one, but now I know, after I read Sorrow and Bliss, books about 20-somethings, depressed, fumbling through life, like, I'ma just leave them alone. I'ma just leave them alone. Like, I don't need to read those. I don't need to read those, you know? I can just leave those alone. Like, 20-something in vibes, I can leave those alone. Like, that's fine, and I know that now. I know that now. At least we know that. Let's move on. I'll see you guys in the next clip for the next book. Okay, so I have things to admit and lies I have to come to terms with. I said earlier when I was reading Luster, I don't like books about girls roaming through life, or our narrator who may or may not be telling this truth, aimlessly going through life. The plot is a little distorted. We don't know what's real, what's fake, when it happened, timeline weird. She makes decisions you don't know. You as the reader confused. I lied. I lied, because I am reading Sorrow and Bliss. So that's the next book that we're reading. It might be the last book we read, and stay with me, by Meg Mason. And like, I'm enjoying the hell out of this book. This book is so interestingly written. What this book does, where I feel like I respect and what I don't respect about Luster, I feel like things in Luster were written in order for our author not to have to write complex and interesting characters. They made the lack of information you get, the lack of understanding you get, that became the style, just so they didn't have to write a novel that had interesting characters, that made sense, that had character development, that had like just understanding. I feel like people just let Luster off the hook, like that's the style. You're not supposed to know what happened. You're supposed to be frustrated. And it's just like, I kind of believe like the author just didn't want to write the complex novel. Sorrow and Bliss is literally doing the exact same thing Luster is doing, but I find it so much more fun. I find it so much more fun, and I get exactly why she's doing it. Okay, so this book follows a girl named, what's my girl name? Martha. Martha is dealing with something. So at the beginning of the novel, her husband is leaving her because they had a party, something happened. The husband is just like, you have to go, like, we can't do this. So we start the novel off already with us not really knowing what's going on. Like, why is her husband leaving her? What has happened at this party? What has happened in the past where this is the final straw? And like, what's going on? So our protagonist, she has an unnamed like illness. Like, the illness goes unnamed. She doesn't know what is wrong with her, but she knows when she turned 18 years old, something in her changed. Like, she just was knowing something was different. Like, she realized like, oh, something is wrong with me. So we get Martha pretty much telling her story of what has happened in her life. So we are just following Martha throughout her life, the people she has met, the places she has lived, the men she has been married to. And this book has so many things that I like. Let me begin by like the structure in which this is written. This book is written like our protagonist is telling the story as if you know the things that have happened in our protagonist's life. So like, you'll get a chapter and it'll be about like a husband, and you're like, it's almost like the book expects you to already know like what had happened with this husband, and she's just filling you in on the details. That's what it is. It seems like you should already know what happened, but let me fill you in on the details. It's like if your friend gets a divorce and they come in and be like, so like, yeah, well, my husband left me, and they're like giving you the details because you already know they got a divorce. But like in this book, we as the reader, we don't know that certain these things have happened to her. We don't know, like, she's just like, she's kind of vaguely referenced to them, but she just starts going into the story as if you know, like as if you knew how she met Patrick, her husband, as if you knew they grew up together, as if you knew the things like that are happening to her. And like, I love it so much because it feels real. It feels real. It feels like you're really being like told a story, and like you go back and pick up the crumbs and figure out like, oh, so this got us here, so how did this happen? Like, you know, you're just being filled in. Another thing I love about this book, I have learned this about myself. I've known this about myself for a while. I love a old hag. I love a woman who has been in life. I love a story, and I think that's why I don't like luster. Like, young people shit just do not really, like, it don't move the needle for me. But I love a hag who has been through some shit. And we have a hag, we have an older woman who has been through some shit. She got some things to tell. She got some stories to tell. So I love that. But then this book does what I love the most in a novel. What I love the most in a novel, a toxic mama. I love a toxic mama. But what I love the most about this toxic mama, she's toxic and you can tell she's toxic, but she's toxic in a way most people's mama, like if you have a toxic mama, most people's mamas are toxic. Like, she's not throw you down the stairs, you a bitch toxic. She's toxic in a way where like she feels like life didn't give her her fair shot. So she like puts everyone down around her, and she's trying to get her thrills, and so she's not worrying about the thrills of her kids. She still feels like life has more written for her, and so she's mean to everybody else until she gets hers. There's a scene in this where her aunt, so her mama's sister, is playing the piano, and everyone's enjoying it, everyone's singing, and the mom like does this thing where she was like, remember when you were young and you thought you were going to be famous and you used to pretend like you were playing in front of a huge crowd? I love scenes like that because it's like, it shows the nastiness of people, because people are like this in real life. Like the ways in which they try to humble you, like show your shortcomings, like don't think you hot shit, like remember this, remember that. I loved it. I love it. She's just such a toxic, terrible mother. I am enjoying the hell out of this book, as you can tell. I am because this book is more of a stream of consciousness. We're getting told about her life. It's obvious like she has depression. It's just I'm loving it. I really am. I am enjoying Sorrow and Bliss in a way that I did not enjoy Luster, which shows you I can enjoy a book like Luster. I just thought Luster was senseless. I thought Luster was senseless, and it just was not for me. But anyways, I'm going to finish Sorrow and Bliss sometime, and we might end the video there. I don't know if I have enough time to read Pachinko, because like we have to get it done by the end of the end of the month, and it's looking bleak for us. But anyways, I love you guys so much, and yeah, why am I saying I love you guys so much like I'm leaving? I will see you guys in the next clip. Peace. Hello, you guys. I have finished Sorrow and Bliss. I am giving this book 5 out of 5 stars. We have a hit. We have a hit. We have one of my favorite books of the year, and it is Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason. I loved everything about this story. I loved everything about this story, and it debunks the rumor. It lays the rest to rumors that I can't appreciate depressed women going through life and experiencing the mundane of life. A lot of people say I hate My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I hated Luster. And people say, Key, you just don't like, you know, feminine women going throughout life depressed and like the mundane. And this debunks the noise. It fucks the gossip. Like, I can't enjoy it. What this book does that these other books didn't do, this book doesn't make a mockery of mental illness. This book does not make a spectacle of mental illness. This book tells a story about a woman living with mental illness, a true story, a real story. It does not make a cartoon out of mental illness. I feel like Luster and My Year of Rest and Relaxation made a cartoon, very caricaturist, very over the top and large spectacle out of mental illness, out of women who are dealing with depression. It just seemed like no one wants to tell stories anymore. No one wants to tell stories anymore. No one wants to do character study. No one wants to write good characters no more. This book had all of that. And also it lays to rest the rumors that Kenya can't like unlikable characters. Maggie in this fucking book is insufferable. By the way, I'm going to try to always say my favorite quote of the book, and my favorite quote of the book comes from Patrick, who is Maggie's husband, and he says, "You threw things at me." That quote is so powerful because oftentimes in books like My Year of Rest and Relaxation and Luster, like, our main character does things and you're just supposed to be like, mental illness, depression. And what I loved about this book in telling a story, it confronts Maggie and all the things that she did. Like, yes, I understand that you are dealing with mental illness, and I have done so many things to make up for that and to help you with that. But let's be clear, you threw things at me. And that's just simply not okay. I do not have to be okay with you throwing things at me. And that's what I love, because I could see a lot of people being hard on her husband Patrick, like, she should have did this and you left her in her time of need. But I love that quote being added to this, because you don't get to say that about Patrick. She threw things at him. You cannot be upset for someone wanting to leave a situation where he has gotten things thrown at him. That's just not any way any human being should live. So I just loved everything about the book. I love the ending. I love, I have nothing but great things to say. Like, I found myself relating to Maggie in so many ways, in the ways in which we treat people when we're going through things. And then I found myself relating to the people in her life, and I thought this book was perfection. I really did. I'm a basic ass bitch. Like, I enjoyed Sorrow and Bliss. And the thing is, this whole woman laying her head on the wall, woman laying across the couch, woman being absolutely fucking depleted has been overused like as a cover. But I feel like this is like the perfect cover for this book. It's great. Now we have something we have to discuss. We have to discuss something. Okay, we have some housekeeping. So I was supposed to read Pachinko next. This book is 530 pages long. I'm being loosely. I can't read a 530 page book. Like, this would actually be the longest book I would have read this year if I were to read this book. So it's not happening. What we are about to do is shop the shelves. We're about to shop the shelves. We about to shop the shelves, and we about to find a book that like everyone has been reading, but I haven't read yet. I'm gonna turn on my vanity light to give us a better look at what is going on. So we have some options of book. I'm gonna go down here to my lit fiction. These are books that I'm unhauling and I'm doing a video. Let's move into my lit fiction era. These are all my literary fictions shelf. we have some freaking options. The first option we have that I honestly think we can end it here is Aline. All the literary girlies have read Aline. This is what got Ottessa Moshfegh on the map. And it's just like, Kenya, you should go with this. But you also have a book like Boy Parts that everyone is loving, who is like a lit thick girly. So like you always have that. We could also do, oh yeah, another one the girls are loving. We could do Kim Jong, born 1982. The literary fiction girlies love that one. What's another one the literary fiction girls are eating up? The literary fiction girls loved Look at Me. Do y'all remember that? We always can do that. We can do Before the Coffee Gets Cold, but I feel like Before the Coffee Gets Cold has gotten a little bit too mainstream for the literary fiction girlies. Like, they're like old news with that one. What else would the literary fiction girls love for me to read? We have A Crime in the Neighborhood. Like, I don't know. We have some who have been nominated for like Booker and Women's Prize. The Girls at 17 Swan Street. We have that. Like, what are the objects of desire? Like, whoa. Like, I could read A Little Life. If I read A Little Life, I could have read Pachinko. Like, let's be serious. We have a great... Oh my gosh. The literary fiction girls are raving about this one. We could definitely get into that. We could read we could read Sea of Tranquility. We really could. There's a lot of options of books that like the literary fiction girls have been raving about these past few years and before. But we're gonna read Aline. We're gonna read Aline. That's what we're gonna do. I'm going back and forth. This one is way shorter. So like I could 100. Ooh, this is so short. This is so short. This is so short. I'm not gonna, no. Ottessa Moshfegh, come get your juice. Ottessa, come get your juice. If we're gonna be a literary fiction girl, how do we leave out Ottessa? Like when part of becoming an internet intellectual is appreciating Ottessa. So you know what, Ottessa, come get your juice. Ottessa, you can come get your juice. This is the last book we are going to read for this video because it's short, boy. It's not even 250 pages, boy. So like, I'm sure I probably would have enjoyed this one more. I just ain't got the time. I ain't got the time. So this is a 5-star prediction. So like, I moved this into my 5-star prediction video. So I definitely I'm going to get to this before the end of the year. But it's just not happening today. We're going to read Aline. Okay. Ottessa Moshfegh. Let's get into it. Hello, you guys. We are back. We are reading this entire book in one day. I literally woke up today at 8 o'clock in the morning to get started on reading this book because I only have a day to read it and this video has to go live. So I started reading Aline by Ottessa Moshfegh. This is the book that would get Ottessa on the map, would go on to be the reason why she could go on to write My Year of Rest and Relaxation, Death in Her Hands, and Latvana. So yes, me and Ottessa don't get along. I am on page, I'm on page 87. I'm literally reading in my car. Y'all know how I do. I'm on page 87. Me and Ottessa just aren't gonna be friends, I don't think. I do believe there is an Ottessa book I'm going to like because if you keep swinging, you're eventually gonna hit something. But okay, let me explain to you what the book is about. Then I'm gonna explain to you why me and Ottessa aren't friends. So this book is about a woman who is old and she is recounting and telling us the story of when she was young. Her name was Eileen. She lived in this like bumfuck town with her alcoholic father and she would go on to run away and basically go missing. So you're learning about her story as we get to the point where she is going to run away and go missing, and we're going to learn about what events led to that and what she did before she left. left and all of that. So basically you're just reading a story about this woman named Eileen, but you also have like her coming in as an old woman and telling you like her thoughts, and like you're getting like her thoughts in like retrospect, which by the way, that's one of my favorite things in novels. Like if I had to put like some of my favorite narrative devices or things that people use in books to tell stories, my favorite thing is hindsight. I love it when you're just reading a novel and all of a sudden like your narrator like comes in the future and tells you like their thoughts on something that they did. I love it. I love when they're like, well, and that would come to be a mistake. Like when they say certain things like that, I love it. It is my favorite thing in books. I love a narrator who is in the future and is like recounting a story and telling you where they went wrong, where they went right. So I do like that part of the book. And so that's what the book is about, basically. The problem with this book, Otessa enjoys grotesqueness. Hold up, my food is here. So the thing about Otessa is Otessa likes grossness. She likes to write about the grotesque things of life. She likes to like write her characters in the most like gross and like skin crawling way. Like when she writes sexual scenes, when she writes about mundane things, when she writes about the human body, it's so grotesque and vulgar and even crude. And I totally understand why she does this, because it does evoke an emotion, it does evoke a feeling, and there are people who this 100% works for. A lot of people love to do this in literary fiction. It don't work for me. It makes me uncomfortable in a bad way. Like it's like disgusting. Like there's something that happens in this book. She's like working at her job and she like she goes to go scratch her private parts, and like the way it's described, and then she talks about how she doesn't wash her hands after. Like it's supposed to give you this like visceral reaction, but it does, but it's like at what cost? At what cost? It takes me out of the book. I'm grossed out. I find our narrator gross. Another thing that Otessa loves to do is she takes our main character's personality and makes it almost like, the word is crude. She makes them crude and very brash and hard and stiff, and it's just, I can't relate to them. Not that I can't, because it's not like I need to relate. I enjoyed Sorrow and Bliss, and I loved every character and couldn't relate to every character. So that's not what it is. It's hard for me to picture them, you know? I don't find it real. A lot of people, when things are described really like grossly and grotesque, you're supposed to like, ooh, I feel that, like that is so real and that's so like human and oh my God. But I don't find it that. I find it like grotesque. I find it like over the top, like an over the top exaggeration of what like regular human beings do. Like I find her characters over the top exaggerations of like regular human being, and like that over the topness doesn't work for me. So that is where me and Otessa are like messing up. I don't find the story uninteresting. I'm curious as to what's happening. I don't dislike the story that's being told at all. I find Eileen to be, not Eileen the character, I find her to be perfectly, you know, compelling. I don't want to DNF it at all, but it's just it's that hurdle of the way Otessa likes to write her character. She likes to give it to you raw. She likes to give it to you raw and just like gross, and it don't work for me. It's just not. I think it's this like, it's this mix, because if this was a horror book, I don't think I would totally dislike it. That style of writing. It's the juxtaposition of this being like this, where you're just reading this regular story about this girl who's trying to escape her life, and then you get almost these horror-like elements in describing certain things, and it's just juxtaposing in a way that makes my skin crawl. In a real, I'm terrible at describing books, y'all know that by now, but that's what it's doing. And so like I'm taking points away. Like, I'm taking points away. This is my channel. Like, I don't sit here, I don't have to take the fucking high road, because just because I understand what Otessa is doing doesn't mean I have to take the fucking high road and be like, I get what she's doing, so, like, you know, I'm gonna love it. Like, that's what makes me different. If the point of this video was to read like an internet intellectual, that's what makes me know I can never be an internet intellectual. The objectivity. I cannot be objective. Like, if I don't enjoy the fucking shit, I don't enjoy the fucking shit. Like, I know what Luster was trying to do. I ain't like the shit, so it got 2 stars. My Dark Vanessa, like, there were certain things I didn't like. Like, I didn't like certain choices that were made. It got taken away some stars. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm gonna say something, and please do not hold it against me. Otessa Moshfegh is going to hell. Like, she's going to hell. Does Otessa Moshfegh know, like, if I get to decide who goes to hell and who doesn't, she's going? Like, I mean that jokingly, but girl, this book, I'm going to give it 2 stars because I came on here earlier and said I was enjoying it, and I don't want to make a fool of my fucking self. This book, after the 100-page mark, what the fuck? Like, this book is so boring. Like, I think the biggest offense, I say this all the time, the biggest offense that a book can have is to be boring. Like, I don't want to read this anymore. And that's what this book became. The characters you get, you don't care about. The crime you get, you don't care about. The running away, which I told you was coming, like, happening in this book, you end up not caring about, because it, like, you just don't care. You're reading and reading, and you're just like, I'm waiting to care. Otessa, make me care. Eileen becomes insufferable in the end, and not insufferable in a fun way, insufferable in a, like, I don't want to be here anymore. This book quickly becomes, after the 100-page mark, I no longer want to be here. The promise, the synopsis of this book never comes. So I would recommend, if you do want to run through Otessa Moshfegh's back catalog, to not look up the synopsis of this book. No, nothing. So you might know, because I already told you what the book was supposed to be about, but like, go into this book blind. Like, have no expectation, and then maybe you won't flip from page to page wondering when something is going to happen. Like, you guys, nothing. And the thing is, that's the point, right? I fear with Otessa Moshfegh. By the way, this book was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, I think. And that's what my problem with the fucking Booker Prize. Like, it's a bit unserious sometimes. Because the thing about this book is, you read this book and it's almost like, you know, Otessa Moshfegh is writing a book that's going to be shortlisted for the Booker Prize. Like, you just know, like, it's just a way the book is written. You're like, she knows she is writing something that is going to be considered a literary marvel, a new age classic, and that's why I'm not enjoying. Like, like, the fact that you're bored, the fact that you're waiting for something to happen, the fact that you don't like the character, the fact that you don't care, she wants you to feel that way. She wants you to feel that way. And so when you feel that way, you almost don't want to give it to her, because she wants this book to be boring as fuck. She wants this book to be the girls that get it, and the girls that don't. And it's just like, I don't want to give that to her. I don't want to give it to her, but I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm not one of the girls. I don't get it. Like, I do not get it. Like, I've been sitting here wondering, what about this book do I like? And I just don't get it. I don't get it. It's getting 2 stars. I just don't get it. I just didn't get it. My favorite quote, I did write down my favorite quote in the book. So let's go find where I wrote down my favorite quote in the book. There's a quote, it comes from Eileen herself. It says, I wasn't radical at all, I was just unhappy. Let me say it again. I wasn't radical at all, I was just unhappy. Like, whoa, that's a quote, that's a quote. So, the point of this was me to get back into my literary fiction bag, get back into being an internet intellectual, and like, read the books that all the girlies have been talking about. How do I feel about the girl? I think, you know what, even though all of these weren't for me, I don't think any of these were flops, in a sense that I think they have no audience. I don't know how they got written. I 100% respect all of these books at the very least. So I don't think think this vlog was a complete and utter flop. I'm not gonna give it that. So we first have My Dark Vanessa. I gave this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. Good book. Won't be mentioning it in any of my end of the year lists. Like, perfectly fine. We have Luster. This might show up in worst of the year. I hated it. I did. I gave it 2 stars. We have Sorrow and Bliss. This will show up in my end of the year list. It's gonna show up either in my most surprising books of the year or favorite books of the year. I loved it. 5 out of 5 stars. And I literally want to reread it. Like, that's how I know you're one of my favorite books of the year, when I'm like itching to reread you. I want to reread her. And then Eileen, whatever. Anyways, that is the end of this one. I will see you guys next month for September. Yeah, I love you guys.